Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing all good today. Now today we're going to be in charge of Belaga Ironhammer leading the mighty Dowie up against the Lizardmen. So let's have a little look at our rundown of our armies. So this is a stereotypical kind of Dowie build I tend to take against the Lizardmen. I find it's been super successful in recent battles at least. It's a front line of Longbeards, all with one chevron, as the chevron on Longbeards tends to do a little bit more than most units, especially the first chevron at least. And coming alongside them are going to be the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, Regiment Round Dwarf Warriors. Do a little bit of flame damage, just a little bit kind of tankier than your average Dwarf Warriors. Also have charge defense against large foes, which is super useful, obviously, up against the Lizardmen. Now in the second line, I've gone for something a little bit peculiar, and that is Miners with blasting charges. Now a lot of people like to take these, especially up against Lizardmen, as Lizardmen do tend to take red-crested skink chiefs, and these guys do a decent amount of damage to them. However, I like using them in the second line, so I can throw those blasting charges over, definitely confirm they get both of those off. Then you can simply pull them back to help protect your gun line, or push them around the flanks a little bit. Now speaking of our gun line, we do have a cannon in the back here who's already getting to work firing some shots in. We also have 2 units of the Iron Drakes with Trollhammer Torpedoes. These guys have been carrying the brunt of the army today. They do a huge amount of damage as long as you can protect them, and as you can see, I've got them in this very small tight formation, and that is so they can turn a little bit quicker. And then in the very back protecting these guys, we do have the Regiment Renowned Slayers, Dragonback Slayers, who have that slow, overall just a must-pick, super useful unit, especially up against the Lizardmen, and they're going to be accompanied just by a regular group of Slayers as well. Now for our leadership, we have gone for a Runesmith, who does have Rune of Negation, I believe. Let's have a little double check. Yes, he has Rune of Wrath and Ruin and Rune of Negation, plus this super useful ability called the Hammer of Karak Draz, which is minus 25% weapon damage and minus 44 melee attack. It can basically turn a unit into a potato for 50 seconds, which is absolutely huge, and that can be used multiple times in a battle as well. It just has to be recharged by him being in combat. And for our Lord, we have gone for the Swag Master himself, Belaga Ironhammer, right here, looking like an absolute boss as he is. So he's going to be leading the Dowie from the front line. Now for the Lizardmen, he's gone for a fairly nice build. I quite like it. So in the front line, he has gone for a mixture of Saurus Warriors, some of them chevroned up, and Temple Guard holding down that middle. I'd like to see some red-crested skinks in here as well, but apart from that, pretty nice front line, as it is backed up by 3 units of the Croxagor, who do fantastic damage up against the Dowie, although they do have to be a little bit scared of Trollhammer Torpedoes and cannons and such. Now here on the right-hand flank, or my left, his right, he has gone for 2 units of Cold One Spear Riders, which is a very powerful unit overall. Does decent armor piercing damage, so they should do fairly good against the Dowie, and it gives him that extra mobility as well. Now, for his Lord, he has gone for a Red-Crested Skink Chief, which I like this pick. He's cheap, he's cheerful, and he does decent amount of work against the Dowie. Seeing him on foot as well is harder for him to be sniped out, and he's some really cool attack animations that I quite like. He also has poison attacks as well. And look at him run, like he looks like that little lizard that runs across the water super fast. He's going to be getting in there and swinging that big old weapon of his around. He's also gone for Lord Croak, who's a very interesting pick in this matchup. I haven't brought him myself. Thinking about it, the Dwarfs are quite slow. They struggle to get out of the way of his big attacks. They bring a lot of infantry. However, Dwarfs do have that natural magic resistance, so we're going to have to keep an eye on his spells and see how much damage they do. But as you can see, he's already taken some shots coming in from that cannon right there, swinging in and doing a decent amount of damage. So the Lizardmen, of course, are going to have to push towards me. I've just stuck in my little kind of onion formation. It's a bit of a dwarf geometry, a little bit of a box, but it's fairly spread out as it is. We have some Longbeards in reserve and so forth. And as you can see, Karak, he may be fairly tanky to ranged missile attacks. However, a cannon is still a cannonball at the end of the day, and it's going to hit you in the face and it's going to hurt. However, it is forcing me to ignore all these Croxagor and Cold Ones. So I'm going to do a bit of rearranging here, just trying to block off this little passage here, bring the Longbeards across and some Slayers just to friend in case all these big units want to charge in. And the Iron Drakes are going to be turning, and they're going to start unleashing some volleys in. Unfortunately, they're quite short range, but as you can see, absolute Kobe's there, doing a decent amount of damage just in that first volley. However, it looks like the Cold Ones are going to do that first charge, plus 2 units of Croxagor. However, we do drop down the Mighty Overstone for that expert charge defense from Belaga Ironhammer, negating a lot of that charge there, which is quite useful. We're going to drag some Longbeards over to the front line as well, just to help out. So these Trollhammers, they're getting to work. They're already firing in on these Croxagor. As you can see, they're already down to nearly half health and breaking. The other unit, however, is having to fall back, and we're moving up some Slayers just to plug this gap. So here we come. Here's the first spell by Croak. A little bit of a miss from my opponent. That does a little bit of damage to his Longbeards, but nothing too crazy. And in the back, he is taking a ton of damage from that cannon at the moment. Now the miner's not going to be the most useful in this matchup because I was expecting, of course, some skinks to come into play. Instead it's all Saurus Warriors, so we are going to be pushing these longbirds forwards, and these miners will just help get a 2v1. Another spell coming down from Croak now. Yeah, it's not too much damage onto these longbirds, but they did have the Rune of Negation down as well. Left flank is starting to crumble a little bit, but we do have these Iron Drakes back online, combing their shots in, doing a decent amount of damage. As we can see, a Rune of Wrath and Ruin also going down into Croxgon. We're really trying to focus those guys down right now. Saurus Warriors will struggle up against longbirds. It's a fairly grindy fight, so we don't have to worry about those too much. Another blast coming in from Croak. And let's see, decent damage overall, not too bad, nothing too shabby. Trying to help those Saurus Warriors out on the flank there, and a massive rear attack coming from these cold ones. So he's done a great job so far of breaking into this back line. But we do have Slayers running all around the pitch. They're going to be coming back, trying to hunt these guys down. And the Iron Drakes are very tanky. As you can see, we just move them away. They're super armoured up with 125, and they're going to simply reposition and start firing some shots back in, because we really need them in this front line right now. So in the back, looks like the Slayers are scaring off the Cav, who it looks like they're going to start chasing down some of these round units, which is good play by my opponent. And also, these Iron Drakes are a little bit compromised by some Croxgor, who have collapsed in on this left flank. So we're going to try and recover that. It looks like the other unit has pushed forward just to get some shots over onto Croak. And it looks like a big cannonball's also coming in the side there, and down the Mighty Lord goes. So he's been keeping his requested Skink Chief in reserve here, really, to push him up and get him into combat. As this unit is now going to simply fall back and fire some shots into his Croxgor. In fact, it might look like they're going for those 360 no-scopes. No, they're going to be falling back a little bit. Oh no, they're turning around. Let's see, do they fire? Yeah, they're firing some shots into his Croxgor, and they should get a huge amount of damage. So in the back, we've managed to slightly secure this left flank, having to chuck in the Dragonback Slayers into combat. So they're not, particularly wanted in, but, at least it holds the line. And we do have some miners to help buffer as well, keeping these Iron Drakes back online. And they're now firing some shots over into these Croxgor to help out these beleaguered longbirds, and doing a huge amount of damage, as you can see. The other unit has also managed to fall back and is firing shots in, and it looks like they're quite easily going to break these Croxgor. However, the requested Skink is getting in there, doing some little tail spins and doing a decent amount of damage, flinging those guys around. Right flank is holding up for us, and as you can see, we've now managed to secure the left, but there still is this giant rear threat constantly coming in by these 2 units of Cold One Riders, who it looks like have been chasing off units, which is good play by my opponent. Very disciplined, but the Dragonback Slayers are going to come here and just kind of buffer those guys out a bit and force them away. Cannon is still online, just firing back in. It did its job early on. And yeah, as you can see, these Croxgor are super beat up, and the Saurus Warriors are just really going to struggle to drag down the sheer amount of Dowie that we have there, especially with the help of a Runesmith. Just going to be dropping down those buffs and debuffs. The Iron Drakes, up to 35 kills on this unit, are firing into the Temple Guard, getting that huge splash damage. And it looks like Belegar is going to be falling back to try and duel the red-crested Skink Chief. And a very heroic duel. He comes charging in there. It's a little flying kick as well from Slayer. He's getting there with his hammer, and he should be able to butt that guy's bread fairly easily. Now this unit has managed to get back, and it looks like there's going to be firing some shots into the Cold One Riders, so trying to dart around the side, chasing off units, trying to make them pay for every Dowie kill they get. They are going to turn and charge, but the Dragonback Slayers are happy to eat that charge and will easily do some huge damage back to those guys. Now, the red-crested Skink Chief does look like he has a debuff on him. The hammer has come down, so he's going to be doing no damage to Belegar. However, Cold One Riders do come crashing in to try and rescue the situation. Looks like the Iron Drakes are going to be firing in, and these Slayers, after dealing with this initial unit here, you can see one of the guys running back to the forest with no rider. They are now going to turn over and start dealing huge damage to these very beleaguered Croxgor and these cold ones who are fleeing for the hills. So overall, we've managed to keep the Iron Drakes fighting most of the battle, at least keep them online and shooting. One looks like has been compromised a little bit, but they've been managing to stay online and do huge amounts of damage to these big, huge Croxgor and Cold One Knights, who are really going to be the punching power of my enemy, and with that, power of balance does swing quite heavily in my favour. Front line, we still have the Temple Guard fighting to the death. These longbirds have held for absolutely ages, only 29 kills, but they've done their job holding the line, and the rest of my army to pick up all the kills. Slayers just running around chasing off these nasty dinos. Looks like these Sauros are going to break, and now it's just going to simply be moving Belegar into range of this red-crested Skink Chief, who's getting pounded at the moment by those Trollhammer Torpedoes. If he can, he's quite a quick guy though, he's doing some rolls. He should be able to get up and get back on top of that hill. Slayers heroically charging downhill him and running directly past him, although that does distract him, so Bella can come in for the cheap shot, smashing him in the back. It looks like they are just going to be running over to this big blob, trying to help out these longbirds, whilst Belegar deals with this wavering red-crested skink, who's also been shot the whole time. He's doing his spins, he's doing his tricks, but Belegar just going to batter him with his shield. I don't think there's much use that this red-crested skink chief's going to have anymore, and with that, everything does start to flee. Army losses sets in, and that is going to be a victory for the mighty Dowie there, which is always good to see. And let's see, it is only a Pyrrhic victory though, so it was like the enemy had cost us dearly today apparently. And do we even deserve to get to call it a victory? I think we do. It's still definitely a win. So let's go to the end stats here. So overall, the MVPs, definitely these 2 units of Iron Drake. 62 kills and 48. And considering they were firing at Kroxagor pretty much the entire time, or Temple Guard, also they were used to help finish off Lord Croak, they just did a huge amount of HP damage and even managed to chevron up. One of them double chevron, and the other one chevroned up during the battle. Longbeards, just super resilient, managed to hold that front line with the help of those miners, just to allow these guys to do the real damage. And also as Dragonback Slayers coming in with 73 kills, not too shabby at all. Cannon didn't do too bad, mainly just did damage onto Croak and then turned its attention onto Temple Guard and so forth. No massive amounts of kills across the board, apart from these Iron Drakes really, but everything was just there to hold the line, hold the box, grind down that fight, and use the Iron Drakes to do that heavy damage. Now, these are a unit I highly recommend if you're coming up against Lizardmen. I think they are fantastic. I think Longbeards are also very good, and Miners are good just in case he went really heavy with the older Skinks. They can also be used to protect the back line very effectively. So if you guys enjoyed that mighty victory for Belegar Ironhammer, please do hit the like button down below. Also feel free to comment. Now, we have had a few comments about the sound. Apologies if the sound is a little low. I'm trying to get it sorted. I can't get it sorted right away, unfortunately, as OBS is apparently recording on full volume, so I'll have to look into it a little bit further. But on full volume, it does seem to, play fairly effectively. You can at least hear me at the moment. But if you guys do want to support the channel in any way, there is a Patreon just down below as well. And all that money is going to be going towards the next DLC, which I need to get, is the Vampires, which is super exciting. I'm excited to use them out. If I don't get any funds for them in the near future, I will end up buying them kind of long term anyway, as I am hoping to have all the DLCs and all that good stuff. Unfortunately, there is no stream tonight. We normally stream on Wednesdays at 9, but I've been working on some writing at the moment, which I really need to get kind of going and get finished. So no stream tonight, but there will be another video out tomorrow. So hopefully see you guys back then. Peace, and remember guys, just stay awesome.